6 months since Hurricane Helene hit. We had meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees on last week talking about the damage assessment from a NOAA report that came out last week, and it really puts it into perspective. I want to bring in who's live in studio, WCNC Charlotte's Austin Walker, and your stories have helped really put this tragedy in perspective because you were up there. How long were you up there when the storm hit?
Yeah, so taking us back to 6 months ago, it was a Thursday when it hit, and then we were up there starting Sunday, so just a few days after. But we were there from Sunday up until the following Monday. So there for a long time, sharing stories, and it was really interesting because we were the first news crew to be up in Avery County, up in Ashe County, really breaking the news for the rest of the country of what some parts in Western North Carolina were going through. I mean, this is not Asheville, right? Like the spotlight was on Asheville, but I think that a lot of the stories were left untold and a lot of the focus was shifted away because Avery County, Ashe County, much smaller, not as many people, but still they had it just as bad as Asheville did. So so I was there for, I want to say 9 days altogether. It was life-changing. I look back on those days.
Yeah, I remember seeing your reports, and I'm like, yeah.
I mean, you get this. We cover stories all the time when it comes to flooding, natural disasters. It's like we're kind of used to it. I feel like I use the word numb to it because it's very much routine. But when it came to that, it's nothing I've ever seen before, and I hope I never get to see it again.
Can you describe, because you talked to me when you got back briefly about the setup you guys had. Can you talk about your setup you had up there?
With the
live truck, you couldn't go because roads were closed, right?
Exactly. So I was up there with photojournalist Kevin Wardlock, extremely talented. So we were up there, and we decided to take two separate cars just in case, because all of the roads were washed out. Obviously, potholes. The roads were falling apart underneath. Yeah. Cars were literally dropping into the earth because of what was going on. So we took two cars just in case, God forbid, something ever did happen, and driving around. So we did have to, but there were so many areas cut off, and this might date me a little bit or show my age, but I've never used a map, like a physical map in my life. I've only ever used a GPS, right? I grew up in that digital age, and I remember when I was really young printing out MapQuest, or my grandma did, and then that happened for like a year, and then it switched to digital. But we were up there, and there was no signal, right? So you think that you have your GPS, your world at your fingertips, and all the time. The minute it's gone, you're kind of in shock of like what to do next, especially areas that we've never been to before.
Right.
We're not used to it. I feel like if my GPS went down in Charlotte, I could easily tell you how to get to Sugar Creek and back. But when it comes up there, that's a whole new territory. So we're having to rely on people, and I joked, and we were like Lewis and Clark, trying to figure out which way to go. Residents telling us, oh, well, that street sight's gone, but look for the biggest rock you can see, take a right. You're going to see two potholes in the road. On your third pothole, take a left, and then find the tree that's toppled over that looks like an L.
Wow.
So that's how you get around. So I look
deep in
back,
the hollers. I said deep in the hollers.
Deep in the hollers. Like it was. But everyone was just. Well, it was so intense and so much destruction. I've never seen a community and a group of people so tight-knit and so willing and able to help. They may have just lost their home, but they were the ones to really sit up right then and there, having nothing that they could give monetary-wise, physical-wise, but just be that shoulder for someone else to cry on.
You did many stories up there.
Many stories.
What stories stick out for you?
I think this is really cheesy, but it was my first one up there.
Trying to remember now.
Yeah, it was the baptized in the water.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
Obviously, getting up there, and it was like a war zone. You're numb at first. You don't know which way to go, and then the minute you see people, you just start talking to them. And I think that's the best thing a reporter or a journalist can do. It's actually the silence that stops in between a conversation is the loudest. It really shows, and it breaks open their emotions at that point.
Yeah.
So talking with random people, running into them, you drive up in the car and they see his news crew, and the minute they want to just tell their story, they want to talk to you. And they'll tell you stuff, but then this actually happened in a passing conversation. So I was talking to this one man, which I'm actually going to talk to him tomorrow again. His name is Don Thacker. Don Thacker lives in a deep Minneapolis neighborhood in the heart of Avery County, and his home filled with water all the way up, and he was sitting on the top of his staircase with nowhere to go, and he just saw it rise up with nowhere to get out.
Wow.
His doors were suction closed. And him and his aunt were like, they said, quote, "I'm going to die today." So then the water stopped. They swam through, busted out a window, got out the home, And then apparently there was a priest from Charlotte who came up and was talking to him, and he had been talking about getting baptized for quite some time now. And he said, what's more perfect than doing it in the waters that changed lives? And let's make this into a beautiful moment and not just one that's full of heartache and stress and disbelief and distraught. So he got baptized in the waters that took everything from him. And so when I think about that story, it brings chills.
Yeah.
And I remember telling it, and it was just unbelievable. And so now I know Don pretty well. I want to go up there probably once or twice a month. I see him, and he says, oh, well, thanks for that story. I'm like, no, thank you for talking to us. Because I mean, those are the stories that we as journalists love to cover. We love to talk about the ones that, make you smile, the ones that could make you think a little differently once in a while. It might not change your viewpoint, or it might not make a big impact on you, but it'll make you think for just a second.
It's a life-changing story.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about a million ones. I could give you names. I could give you moments that I will never forget. I mean, one of them was we talked to Terry. Terry was a truck driver. It was a tow truck driver in Ashe County, and Terry couldn't, was trying to pull a woman out of a car, and we're sitting there with her. And I think that was the moment that we said, okay, well, let's just stop the camera for a second and go help. So sometimes you become the story in that situation. You're going to go help it any way you can. But looking back on the 6 months of what has happened and the progress it has made, I mean, walking into Lansing, North Carolina, deep in the heart of Ashe County, and seeing that the water line went up over 11 feet tall, sometimes that's two people stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
So that shows you that if you were standing there in that moment, you would have been gone. You would have been gone. It puts things in perspective.
And Austin, you said 6 months. We're approaching the anniversary. You're going to be up there tomorrow. How long are you going to be up there? And talk about the work you're doing up there.
Yeah, so myself and Jesse Pierre, other reporter, and then two very talented photojournalists will be up in the mountains tomorrow, stretching all the way from closer to Asheville all the way up to Avery, Ashe County, just sharing your stories. I have a few set up right now. I'm excited to actually show them, and they're going to be check-ins. So you actually heard from them 6 months ago, and now it's a 6-month check-in on like how things are doing. A little bit of insight. One of them is with Don Thacker and how his neighborhood in Minneapolis is kind of getting back together. Wow. The idea is while everything has been changing, the one thing that has stayed constant is his consistent faith. So that's kind of the first one. And then the other one also that we'll be looking at is I talked to this one store owner in Lansing, North Carolina, and her name is Amy Blevins, and she and her family were just so beautiful to talk to. It was such a privilege to talk to them in that very hard moment. And their entire store was wiped out. So it was gone. They had opened for a few months, and it was their dream as a family to own a store in downtown Lansing, North Carolina, where they were born and raised, and it was gone. And so they've cleaned things out. They put the down payment on like thousands of dollars of machinery, and they could never use it. But thankfully, this upcoming Saturday is their grand reopening. So you'll hear about that story also tomorrow. So two really cool stories that we have planned for myself. I know Jessie has her other ones as well. I think she's been to the Lake Lure area quite often. So I assume one of them will be out there. But there are things that reporters don't know. So if you're watching the stream right now, you know people who were impacted by Hurricane Helene, and you have a story to tell, I always say, call us, send us an email, let us know. We can't be everywhere all at once. We have eyes at like the back of our head, but they're not everywhere at the same time, right? Right. So you so I ask if you can really just send us your stories, who you are, someone you want to highlight, a person that went above and beyond. That's what local journalism is. It's partnering and holding hands with the community.
I felt like I kept saying wow, but I can't help it because, we've heard these stories. I've seen your reports. I've done a few stories on the impact of Helene on Western North Carolina. And that's all you have to say afterwards is wow, because it is.
It's a wow factor. I mean, it's one that you never think that you'd be in the middle of, right? Like it's something that I'm so blessed I got the chance to do, because I think there are so many stories that have not been told yet. But I was a small piece in this part of our state's history that and I was able to be the one to relay those stories. And I can tell you that the amount of people that have come up to me after the fact being like, thank you for being here, like that's why local journalism matters. Like I'm not to my own horn or anything, but FEMA support and the state didn't come to one of the counties, and it was until we shed a light on that situation. The next day the state showed up and FEMA showed up. And residents say they told us that they showed up because they saw the damage actually. So that's why it matters.
Wow.
And for stuff like that, for the one woman who got dragged by her home down a river, holding on to a tree for dear life, sharing her story.
I remember that story.
That was also another one. I mean, there's a million I could go on and on about. So.
I know you just start thinking, and like the Rolodex, and it's just yeah.
Exactly.
Austin, thank you so much for stopping by the Live Impact studio to talk about what you're doing.
Tune in tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow. Continue our coverage and kind of look back on a time of disaster, a time of recovery, but also a time of strength.
Yeah. Austin, thank you, man.
Of course.
All right. Yeah, that's Austin Walker, who's live in the studio. He's headed to Western North Carolina tomorrow to report on the 6 months since Hurricane Helene hit. Again, I can't believe it's been 6 months since Hurricane Helene hit. Caused so much damage, not only in Western North Carolina, but other parts of the Southeast.